basics of C# programming, and this should set you up for most of the programming stuff that we'll be accomplishing. Of course, at any time, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and speak. And I don't expect anyone to immediately understand everything. So of course, even later, if you need to access the course, which I'll be sharing with everyone once this is over, you feel free to do so. All right, let's get started. So for today, we'll be going over a for loop, while loop, the break and continue keywords, arrays, and a for each loop. All right, well, let's just get straight into it. So loops itself. Loops are a programming structure that allow for repetition. Instead of writing hello world 10 times using a loop, we can just write hello world once, but since it's a loop, we can output it 10 times. We'll take a look at two versions of loops present in C#, a for loop and a while loop. So let's look at for loops first.
Basically, the difference is for loops, you check a given number of times, while while loops, you generally check, it's like repeating a statement, basically.
You could think of it that way, yes. You
And
could
then
honestly
there's
see
do
that they're a
while.
lot more similar than you'd even expect. But anyways, back to the normal topic. So for loop. A for loop is very structural, allowing it to be modified with various aspects. But here's a simple example. For int I equals 0, semicolon, I is less than 5, semicolon, I plus plus. And then inside the brackets, we've indented and written console.writeLine I. So what's happening here is that basically we're establishing a entire condition. But the main central condition here is that I must be less than 5. As long as I is less than 5, this code that's indented inside the brackets will run. And around it, we have some background information. You can even think of it. You have int I equals 0. We're starting up I, which is a reference variable. We've established a condition, I is less than 5, and then we have I plus plus. I plus plus is basically a way of saying to increase I by 1. Now, I will only increase by 1 whenever this entire loop has run once. So once it's gone through its processes once, I will go up by 1. And I'll go back to the top, and then I'll check the condition again. And I'll keep doing this process. So I guess some more detailed explanation. The for loop will have a condition at the beginning, though must be qualified in order for the loop to run completely. So in a previous example, the entire condition was int I equals 0, I is less than 5, I plus plus. However, there's subsections, right? The first section is where int I equals 0. We're establishing a starting point with a reference variable. So in ours, it's I. You can put whatever variable you want. It's often common that programmers will use I, but of course, you can use it depending on whatever situation you have. Say you're doing some sort of number looping, you could do int num equals 0, whatever fits the bill. The second subsection is I is less than 5. This establishes the main central condition that must be met in order for the loop to run. As long as I is less than 5, this loop will continuously go through. And then the last subsection, the third one, is I plus plus in our example. This establishes how the reference variables will increase with each iteration. So for example, I plus plus increases by 1. It's a shorthand notation. It's not the actual way to write it, which I will show. Yes, so here's a few examples. So for int I equals 7, I is greater than 2, I minus minus. So what's a little different here is you can notice that we're starting at a higher value, but our condition is to be greater than a lower value. And as a result, our increment or decrement instead is mostly a decrement since we're decreasing by 1. It will start at 7, go down 1 each time until it reaches 2, because at that point, 2 is equal to 2, not greater than 2, making the loop false and then running and then just exiting the loop. There's another example. For int I equals, yes?
So how does it work if you say you want to do a for loop? Say you want to do it a loop 6 times, but okay, that's just a dumb question.
I presume you figured your question out then. Right. So for int I equals 0, I is less than or equal to 10, I plus equals 2. So this one is more similar to our first example because we're going up. But notice how we're doing I plus equals 2. This is shorthand notation again for I equals I plus 2. If you remember from our variables presentation, all that means is we're increasing the value of I by 2. So basically, it's going up it's going up by 2 rather than going up by 1 with I plus plus. Let's go ahead and try this with the editor. I did throw a lot of information. So here's an example I've already set up. We don't really need this for now, but we can see that if we type for int I equals 0, I is less than equal to 10, I plus equals 2. And we have console.writeLine I. So let's go ahead and try running it. There we go. Oh, is everyone able to see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So yeah, as we can see, we've got 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. It went up by 2s, matching exactly what you wanted. It did print out 2 because we wrote less than or equal to. If you wrote just less than, it's not going to print out 10 because that doesn't qualify. See, 0 through 8 rather than 0 through 10. So let's go experiment with some of these. Let's try the greater than one. So int I, I'll show you that we can use another word too. Num equals, let's see, 10, I guess. We'll start from 10. Num is greater than 2. Notice you have to use greater than here because we'll be going down. It'll keep checking if it's greater than 2. And then we want to decrease by 1. Oh, whoops. But now that we've used num as the reference variable here, we have to use num whenever we reference, because num will hold that value. So when I do console.writeLine num, it's just going to get this num value that's been changing. So as just a recap, so num equals 10, num is greater than 2, and then num minus minus. So all this does is we start off with 10. Okay, 10 is greater than 2. So it satisfies the condition. Let's go through. It's going to print out 10 because that's what num contains currently. All right, loop finished. Go back to the top. Now we do minus minus. 10 minus 1 is obviously 9. 9 is greater than 2. Satisfies the condition. Print out 9. Go end of the loop. Go back to the top. 9 minus 1, 8. 8 is greater than 2. Satisfies the condition. And now it's going to print out 8. It's going to keep doing this process until it reaches, I guess, 3. 3 is greater than 2. Satisfies the condition. Print out 3. Go back to the top. 3 minus 1, 2. Well, 2 doesn't satisfy the condition. So it'll exit the loop and print out whatever's next. I'll show you whatever's next, just for reference. The loop has finished. Whoops. All right, let's see. Hopefully it was correct. Yeah. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, but it doesn't go through 2 because that doesn't satisfy the condition anymore. And then now we get the loop has finished because it's exited the code. I'll show you the plus equals. So we can do, instead of doing plus equals, we can also do minus equals. Or you can just do the entire thing. You can do num equals num minus. I'm pretty sure this will work, but I'm going to try. Let's see. Yeah, this did work. So instead of going down by 1, we went down by 2 this time. Now notice I've done num equals num minus 2. Now in my examples, I've used a shorthand notation. So what num equals num minus 2 can be shortened to is it can be shortened to minus equals 2. That's just a faster way of writing it. It's not too different, but it's just another way to visualize things. But by putting that, it's just the same thing. However, the process is that it goes a little bit faster since we're going down by 2 instead of 1. Now it still doesn't print out 2 because 2 doesn't satisfy the condition. I think I've pretty much covered it. Does anyone have any questions about for loops?
REPL.it is the only reason I'm here.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear you.
It is a joke, okay? It's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't able to hear it correctly, but okay. Moving on. While loops. That's the other loop we have. While loops have a much more simpler condition. It's really just giving that central condition in the parentheses, and then we place the other subsections in different areas. Here's an example. Int I equals 0, while I is less than 9, and then we have console.writeLine I, and then you can see that I++. So instead of all the condition pieces being placed within the parentheses like there were in the for loop, the middle condition is still in the same place, but the beginning condition is before the while loop. The final condition is within the while loop. So the middle condition, I is less than 9, we saw that in the same spot. Int I equals 0, that's placed at the beginning before it even happened. And finally, the final condition, which is the I++, that's within the actual loop. However, they all serve the same purpose. Due to the nature of the pieces being sorted around in different areas, the complexity of the while loop kind of rises. You can alter how exactly the reference variable, which is again usually I, increases or decreases. You can utilize our previously learned if statements in conjunction for this problem. So here's an example of a loop with an if statement. I didn't have enough space to put down another ending bracket, but regardless, int I equals 0. While I is less than 9, we have console.writeLine I. But does anyone remember what I put down, what the condition in the if statement means? It uses modulus.
The remainder
Anyone?
of it's even. The if checks if it's even.
Yes, exactly. That's correct. What will happen here is that it'll check the remainder, like Madhav said. So, well, the first time, 9 divided by 2, well, that's a remainder of 1. So 1 is not equal to 0, so it'll go to the else. And that just does I++. However, once it'll go up 9, well, the example, say for example, it was 8. If it went to I modulus 2, well, the remainder of 8 is 0, then it'll run the if statement code. So then that'll be like, say, I minus 2. So it'll go down to 6. So as you can see, by using if statements, we can actually change if I goes up or I goes down. So that just increases the complexity of our if statement, using if statement. Let's first do some practice before moving on. All right, so while loops now. And we've added some if statements. So let's see what we can do. Now, there's one main thing to know. Although I've used int I equals 0, just a number. So I is less than 9. And then you don't have to use a number for while loops. You can use, because the condition all has to be is true or false. So you could very well put a Boolean there as well. If that's correct, you can do Boolean. And then, I don't know, item equals true. I'll call that state. That makes more sense. All right. So you do have to be careful here though, because although you can put Boolean in here, we do not want a while loop to have its condition always be true. That's essentially telling it to crash the computer. You can close this, but so you have to make sure that your while loop does end at some point. So I guess for this scenario, we'll want to have some way or form of confirming that our state value will turn to false at some point or another. So I'll show you console.writeLine. The loop has ended. So for whatever reason, I can say console.writeLine 1 plus 2 equals 3. Just as an example, but it's not really that necessary. But in this situation, since the Boolean value state is equal to true, and then the while loop's going to start running, it's going to check, all right, well, true is true. That's what it is. So it's going to run the value and go back to the top. True is still true. It's going to run the value, go back to the top. True is still true. And just like that, the while loop will run that console.writeLine 1 plus 2 equals 3 forever. It will never reach the loop has ended, just because of the fact that the condition is always true. That's something you want to be careful of whenever you're writing while loops. So it's just something to keep in mind. The examples on the PowerPoint are with integers, and integers are it's a bit easier to work with. However, you can still use Booleans. It's just something to keep in mind. So I guess we'll go back to original. Int, I don't know, I equals 0. I is equal to 9. And then let's just do console.writeLine. And let's print out, I don't know, I plus 2. Just as for fun. So, and then we have I plus plus. So that's going to increase I by 1 every single time. So 0 is going to go up to 1, 2 is going to go up to 2, 3 is going to go up to 3. And just like that.
There's actually a very, the one math problem. The math problem where it's like the 3x plus 1 and x divided by 2. I'm pretty sure I'm having a horrible time describing it.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one. That's easy. It's quite easy to create that. Mind if I share my screen? Or should I do it later?
Yeah, sure. If you already have it ready, then.
Yes, of course, I have it ready. Screen, go. Okay, here it is.
So this is a really good example of using an if statement inside of a while loop in order to change how your I reference variable goes up or down.
It's a famous mathematical problem since it doesn't really have a proof yet. Will this while loop end for every integer?
I see. That's pretty interesting. So it goes on forever? No, it
No,
doesn't.
all numbers that we found out so far,
Right.
but we haven't proven that all numbers end. There may be some
but
number
for all
out
we've
there.
tried.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's really cool. All right. I'm going to share back. Okay, so Mada showed us a pretty good example, and he did also bring up the it is a pretty famous problem. I'll just show a pretty simple example, not as complicated, but let's just try the one I had on the PowerPoint. Modulus 2 equals 0, and then let's have so let's do minus equals 2 with shorthand. And then we had else. Let's try I plus plus. So let's plan this out because we do not want this to run forever. We're just gonna make sure it works. So 0 starts off at 0. And is 0 modulus 2 equal to 0? Well, yes. So I will go to negative 2. Well, negative 2 modulus 0. So this will create an infinite loop. That's not what we want.
Yeah.
So we want to change this to 1. And then
No,
we'll have
that'll
0.
still create an infinite loop. That'll still create an infinite loop because it'll go down to -1, then go to 0, -1, 0, -1, 0.
Let's try, then let's try something a bit simpler. I equals 8.
It's still an infinite loop.
I don't know, 1 second. Go up to 8. Yeah.
Why don't you make it I plus equals 3, okay?
Right here.
No, up in the... Yeah, actually, they both will go over. But...
Let's just do, let's just do this.
Okay,
Then let's make this 2.
understandable.
This 4. So then instead, I'm pretty sure we'll just skip it.
I
Okay,
guess.
let's see how it works. Or not. Oh, I didn't print anything. Whoops. My bad, guys.
Loop. Do you want to do it before? Hold that. Right line.
Let's put it at the top, actually. All right, let's see how this goes.
Why do you have 2 while loops?
Probably by accident.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, because I've doubled it by 2, I've essentially skipped that section. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Once we reached 4, we added 2. We just went straight to 6, and then 7, 8. So although it's a simple example, it just shows how you can alter the direction of how you can use the I value or whatever reference value you're using, as long as you have if statements. So it just shows how you can increase complexity. All right, continuing on. So the break keyword. Now we established the loop structure, we can introduce the break keyword. So break automatically exits a loop or an if statement when placed. So example here, for int I equals 0, I equals to 10, I plus plus, break console.writeLine. Since break is immediately at the top, whenever you run it, it's just going to exit out completely and you won't get any console.writeLine. So in reality, even though this looks like a, it's going to print out all the numbers, it won't print out anything. So we'll just go ahead.
If break is inside an if statement that's inside a for loop or inside a loop, will it exit the loop or just the if statement?
I believe it'll exit the if statement. It's inside the if statement.
Isn't it? But isn't that the purpose of continue? Like continue will exit the if statement but stay in the loop, but break will just break out of the loop.
Not exactly. I will explain continue in a second. 1 second. Let me do a few examples and I'll do that. There's a little different definition of continue. But let's just try. So while I is less than 9, so we can have console dot writeLine. We do I, and we do if I equals say 4. For example, we want it to break so that it will exit out, and then we can have else I plus plus. Okay, so if we run this, as you can see, it got straight to 4, but we don't get any other numbers. The reason for that is because of break. So once it went up to 1, 2, 3, and then when it hit 4, it satisfies the if condition, leading to break. Once it sees break, it exits out of everything. Oh, that actually thing answers your question. So it exits out of everything rather than just the if statement.
I figured continue will just exit out of the if statement.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me test that.
Okay, so as you can see, the break will exit out of the loop. You might have also remembered that we did use it last class. Last class we used it for the switch case, which is a different type of if statement. But yeah, does anyone have any questions about break? And I'll go on to continue now. Okay, so the break keyword can be utilized in many other ways. Using the if statement and loops, you can create specific scenarios for the break to be used, like for more complex structures. So the continue keyword, it's a little bit more different. It's less extreme. So unlike break, the continue will just exit the current iteration rather than just the entire loop. So you use this when you want to skip code only for like a certain number, but still want to use the other values. So just going to do an example of that. So if you remember here, we have I equals 4. So if you do continue, it will skip over this. But we have to change this to actually see it. How do I want this to happen? So instead of having an else, let's put this outside. And then okay, so this might be best shown with the for loop more. Yeah, I'm gonna use a for loop here. All right. So based on what continue can do, so once the for loop will go through, so it'll go 0, and it'll go to 1, 2, 3, 4. Once it reaches 4, you'll see continue. But once what continue does, it exits the current iteration. So console.writeLine will be skipped. It'll go back to the top, continuing the rest of the loop. So in theory, this will not print out 4 just because of the continue. So let's try it. Yep, right there. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and it went straight to 5, and 6, 7, 8. So what happened is that it just exited that current iteration, or just that one cycle, but it continued the rest of the cycles because the if condition did not match and the continue was not read. Does anyone have any questions about continue? But I think we're pretty close. Okay, so here's an example of continue. I equals 0 while I is less than 9, console.writeLine I. So basically it's just saying that, for example, if it's even, continue it, but if not, print, like say this is printed. All right, so arrays. And arrays are a special type of data structure that have a combination of items in sort of like this one box. Here's an example, string names, you have Bob, Jeff, Paula. So the string contains 3 string values separated by commas, but the entire object is an array. So to access values within the array, you have to use the index of the array. However, the index is 0 based. All that's saying is that the first value has an index of 0. Here's an example, but this time it's using integers. So we have int, you have to establish what data type it is. So int, and then by putting the brackets, you tell it it's an array. Nums, that's the name. We set it equal to, brackets 1, 3, 4. So that's our array. But we access the values of that array by doing nums bracket 1. So that technically gives you only the second value because the index is 0 based. So we do nums 1, we get 3. We do nums 0, we get 1. Let's go ahead and try this out. And you can use this in conjunction with a lot of loops, but let's just try it. So int nums equals 1, 5, 6, I don't know, 7, 8. 8. And then we want to print out, say, console.writeLine nums 0, for example. I don't need this anymore, I believe. So just comment that out. And then we'll get, if it appears, there. Okay, yeah, there you go. We got 1. Well, since the reason we got 1 is because 0 is the first value in the array. Its arrays are run by 0-based indexing. That's something to keep in mind if you're using if you're coding values into an array. You have to be careful that you don't type 1 expecting the first value. You'll have to put in 0 expecting the first value, or 1 expecting the second value. So I'll show you. If I put in nums 1 here, which seems more intuitive, you'll instead, let me close this. You'll instead get the second value, 5. There you go. But we can use this in conjunction with loops, really. So well, I'll keep that, but let me change this. So while, let's do a for loop because it's a bit easier. For int I equals 0, I is less than, well, how many values do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But remember, it's 0-based indexing, so that last index is really just 4. I'll double have to put equal sign here. And then I plus plus. And then we do console dot writeLine nums, and we do I. So we've replaced the index which is normally a number with I, which is our reference variable. By combining these two topics, it should print out all the values. It should. Oh, well, it did. So you have 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All the values. So, as you can see, it did the job. And it printed out, as you can see, we started off with int I equals 0, so it printed out start off from the first value. And then it added 4 because that's the last value. You could make this 5, but you just have to make it a greater than sign. This would still work, not a problem. But you just have to be mindful of when or the condition will end, or when the list will end. So that's how the array works. Does anyone have any questions? All right, so, and then the last item really is the for each block. There's one last structure to look at. A for each loop is pretty much especially made for arrays. You can use it because all the items of an array. So here's an example: int item 1, 2, 3. You have for each int I in item console.writeLine I. All that basically does is that it prints one item from 1, 2, 3. So it'll print each item from 1, 2, and 3. Oh, this is on the wrong slide. I meant to put it on the.
Use every time you want to use a loop for one of an array in Python.
I see. Yeah, it is used it's in Python too, I'm pretty sure. But okay, I'll go and show that. So this one is well, there's no real preference for when you use it, but I'll use a smaller list. So let's do a string this time. Names.
Keep our names. Keep our names.
What? Power names?
Our.
Oh, our. Oh. Still, I don't know, model. Sam. There. Just put 3 for now. But I really don't want too many. I just want to show you how it works. So for each, and I do name, so it's a string, so you gotta type in string, name in names, that's the name of the, did I do something wrong? Oh, it's probably because of this. And then we type in name. Oh, it's still an error. Oh, it's in here, whoops. Okay, so for each, so string name in names, it's a little complicated. I'll do item, so it makes more sense. String item in name, so it's just representing every single one of these as the variable item, and then it's gonna do console.writeLine display item. So instead of having to calculate, all right, so the last number is 5 or should be 4 because of 0-based indexing, you can just use a for each loop if it's a very simple display. So if I do Control S, coding class, and it should, yeah, auto model sim. Just like that, it's printed out each item. And yeah. So is there anything else I want to talk about here? Not really. Does anyone have any questions about this?
As of now, no.
Okay, well, that's pretty good. That's about it for today. I don't think I have a project either. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to cover? Oh, well, one thing I did want to try was try to make a calculator. I'm gonna try, but if you guys want to try on your own, that's also fine. And I'll see how far I get. I'll just try for a few minutes, but
Is it gonna be
you have to combine a lot of.
calculator from last year? Is it gonna be similar to the Kiwi calculator from last year?
Oh, no. No, this is just a simple. I'm simple. Just I'm trying to understand like combining the topics we've learned. No, the Kiwi calculator that was an actual GUI. We're not doing that with C
That
Sharp.
was the best week of this class, in my opinion. That I've been.
It was very fun. But yeah, so we'll have to utilize like console.readline. So let's see. And then we could probably type console.writeLine. Please type a number. There. That's why it took so long. If I copy that. And then we have to set this to variables. Let's do num1 equals convert dot to string. No, 0. Oh wait, sorry, to int already. 32. There we go. And then you gotta put that on this line too. Num2 equals convert dot to int 32. And we have two variables. And then now we have to ask console.writeLine. Please type the operation. And for simplicity, I'm only going to do the main for. But luckily, most of it's not too bad. Oh, whoops. And then we'll have, for this one, you don't really need it. You can just do string operation. Oh, do OP. OP equals console.readLine. And then now we have stat string. We can just check if that string is equal. So if statements, you can do OP equals, so we have plus, right? That's one of them. Then we'll do console.writeLine. One plus number two. But I think you get the idea. And then we'll have, pretty much this is copied. Else if OP equals minus. So this is time it's minus. And then for this, you can copy the rest. Whoa, looks like I messed up. There, so then now I can do minus and I can do times, which let's use an asterisk. And then I guess I'm not too sure we could do divide. We'll have to convert it to a float. We'll see. It'll do a truncation, but I think it's fine. We'll manage. And then we can do divide. Okay. And then I can just test it out and see if it works. Hopefully it all works out. Let's see. Control S. All right. Please type a number. So for example, let's do 1, 2, I want to plus 3. Okay, it works out. And now we can finally combine our last topic we learned, loops. Now we have to figure out a way to make this entire thing loop forever. Now remember, we can have break and continue. So what we can do is we can ask them a question. Console.writeLine. Do you want to continue using the calculator? Then we can do string answer equals console.readline. So we get their answer, and just to confirm, we can ensure that they're typing in a certain value by doing yn, so they can do yes or no. And then we do if answer equals y.
Can you scroll back up?
Oh yeah.
Okay, got it.
Continue. And then don't worry about the variable. We can do, although what we should do more is just get no. In case they say no, we should just break. And then we get that. Then we can take this out and we can say, thank you for using the calculator. There. And the reason the break is coming because this all isn't in a loop yet, so we can add a loop. Now I did Control X, so we do while, and since we want this to play forever until the person says no, instead of typing in a condition, we can just type in true, because that's what the Boolean itself is. I do Control V, so this will run forever until the person types in N, or do you want to continue? And then you can even expand this onto like a whole menu in items. Like remember, if you see in games often, like you have the option to choose certain stuff. It's basically all that is. Like a merchant shop or something. Like, are you sure you want to buy this item? It's the same thing right here. But let's just go ahead and try it. So I want to do 2. I want to do 4. I want to add the 2. Do I want to continue? I don't want to continue. Thank you for using the calculator. Great. So let's try continuing it. See what happens. 4, 2. I want to divide. 2. I want to continue. Okay, there we go. Okay, well that's a simple calculator using everything we've learned, although you could, and I'm pretty sure you can do this, you could also utilize arrays to create like a short memory system, but that's a little bit more on the complex side. But that should be how to create a pretty simple calculator using most of what we've learned today. Does anyone have any questions?
For the operations, is it better to use switch case?
Sorry?
For the operations, is it better to use case?
Oh, switch case? Yeah, it would be better. I'll try converting it, but yeah, in this situation, you make a good point actually. Yeah, switch case is considerably better because of the fact that these are very similar answers, and you don't have any and also the fact there's a lot of if statements. The switch case would be the preferred method. I was just using if. It also came to my mind when I first thought of it. But yes. So, have any other questions? I mean, that's about it. That's all I have for you guys for today. Next week we'll probably do more. We'll get back onto Unity stuff. Now that you guys have a good understanding of how C# works, it'll be a lot easier for me to explain how the code works in programming whenever we start scripting in it. All right, guys. Thank you for coming. It was pretty fun.
Alright, see you.